Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. My name is Dabney and I'm an evolutionary astrologer. And what we do on this channel is we look at how the cosmos and the planetary energy can help us down here on planet Earth to live a more peace-filled and conscious life. Today, I think this is kind of an important video. We're going to be looking at the quality of energy with the planets over the next several months. So, as we've been talking a lot about, the outer planets will be changing signs in the spring and summer. But right now, other than Pluto having moved into Aquarius already, we are dealing with a lot of the same familiar energies that we've been dealing with for the past several years. So what I want us to do is really take advantage of this time where these planetary energies are finishing up, because a lot of them are in the sign of Pisces. And that is important. So we're going to dig deep into each one of these planets in the sign that they're in over the next several months. There'll be individual videos, but this video really is about healing. And it's about healing from the broken promises that we were all given growing up. So this is going to be a chaotic time. This is going to be a time of sadness and melancholy and tumult. But it's also a time of healing. And the more that we can heal at this time, the better off we're going to be by spring and summer when we're dealing with a new energy, when actually things may feel less depressing and less challenging because it's about fresh starts and the new. And right now we're still in the collapse of the old. And again, the theme for this video is broken promises. So if that's content you're interested in, I really do hope you stick around. So one of the things that I just need to quickly do is plug my course. I have a course that I just launched as my very first one, and I'm putting all the information down below in the description, and I'll also pin a comment. And the reason I created this course is it's called Revisioning Your Life in 2025. So, okay, my Virgo moon's just gonna drive me crazy. I can't take it. Okay, it's still a little crooked, but okay. So anyway, back to the... Revisioning Your Life in 2025 is what the course is about. And it's looking at where Pluto, because Pluto, as an evolutionary astrologer, Pluto is a very important planet to me. And I mean, to everybody. But Pluto is important, and so are the nodes. And so what I look at in this course is I teach you how to figure out where Pluto was in Capricorn and what were the lessons that you learned over the past 2 decades, what it was trying to teach you, and what it's going to be teaching you when it's in Aquarius. And then I also help you understand where the North and South node are in your chart and what that means for you, how you are here to have a certain destiny, what is your life's purpose, and how can you step more fully into that in 2025. Because I think the more that we can embody the lessons that we want to learn in this lifetime from a bigger spiritual standpoint, the better equipped we're going to be for 2025 once the outer planets change over. So enough about my course. It's pre-recorded with a lot of awesome downloads and bonus material, but there are also going to be 2 live sessions where I'm going to answer questions and also do mini readings. So, okay, enough about that. Let's get to the video. Okay, so Venus just went into the sign Pisces on January 6th. So I'm actually going to outline all of the things that I'm talking about, but then I'm not going to keep going back and forth with all the astrology babble. I'm going to actually then just kind of be more in storytelling mode to help you understand what I think is going on and how we can best heal from this time. Okay, so the things I'm looking at is Venus just went into Pisces January 6th, and it's going to be there for a really long time. It's usually not there that long, but it's going to be there until April, with a little sojourn into Aries in March, and there's going to be some retrograde action. So you don't need to know about all that. We'll probably do some stuff more in depth on it, but just keep that in mind. Venus is in Pisces. Venus is relationships. Venus is love. Venus is beauty. Okay. And it's in the sign of Pisces, which is about universal love. It's about love for your fellow man. It's about love for on a higher plane. It's not necessarily like that sexual love. It's more about the love of beauty and the love of humanity. Okay, it's universal love is Venus in Pisces. Saturn is still in Pisces, very important. And that's a big part of what I'm going to talk about, the broken promises. Also, Neptune is in Pisces. Okay, catching a theme here. The North Node and the South Node on January 11th or 12th. The nodes in the sky, not your personal nodes in your birth chart, but the transiting nodes, the nodes that we're all working under, are going to be shifting into the Virgo Pisces axis. So the North Node is in Pisces. So, wow, that's a lot of Pisces. Then we have Uranus in Taurus still, and we have Mars that just went back into Cancer. Okay, those are all very yin signs. Those are all very feeling, emotional, grounded. Well, Pisces isn't grounded, but Uranus and Taurus is grounded. Anyway, it's very emotional. Let's put it that way. Let's take Uranus and Taurus out of for the moment. But what I'm talking about is this is all planetary energy we've been living with on the outer planets, but it's the end degrees. It's the end of these times. And then the faster moving planets are all moving into like Pisces and Cancer, which is water and emotion and feeling and yin. And when I say yin, it is the archetype of the feminine energy. Okay, so I got that out of the way. Now let's just talk. What does all this mean and how can we best deal with it? So I think we've all seen that, not just the Pluto and Capricorn ending of structures. Pluto already went into Aquarius, so that was kind of the first piece that's moving forward. So that piece is moving forward, but we're all still feeling that sense of loss. And sort of like, I don't know where to go next. And the reason that is because Pisces is the last degree of the zodiac. And when you have energy in Pisces, it's about surrender. It's about saying, I don't know. It's just so much bigger than me. I don't know anymore. The high side of Pisces energy is beauty and love and creativity and a connection to the spirit and connection to your soul. Okay, so this is a lot about your soul and something bigger, like your connection to the stars and the planetary energies. So let's talk about promises. We all grew up, most of us at least, in Western culture, which is who watches this channel, with a certain expectation and a promise. We were told about the American dream. We were told that if you work hard, that we're a meritocracy, you can have it all. We were told that you just had to, work hard and you would do better than your parents. We were told you get an education and a good job would be waiting for you. We were told that everyone is equal and we're a melting pot. Okay, so we've been told all of these kind of myths about America. Then we also were told, maybe not in words, it was implicit, let's say, that white men ruled. Like they were the ones in charge. And so if you were any kind of person of color, an immigrant, a woman, you sort of knew your place in society and you adapted to get along. Okay, there's different methods of adapting. But as an example, as a woman, now here's the thing, I have benefits that other women don't have. I have other things that were challenging. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in an abusive situation. So I had things that held me back, but I also had two very educated parents. And I'm white and I'm blonde. Okay, so I had some advantages. And I sort of knew, okay, if you follow this path, this is how you work the system, knowing where you fit into society. So we all have our sort of mythology of where we fit into society and how we have to get along. So there's kind of the immigrant story. There's everyone has, and I don't want to speak for other people's stories, but I can say that it was very obvious from the time I was born, through media, through culture, through, things my parents said, that, through the government, through everything, was always older white male leaders. White men had a certain entitled birthright to run the show. And I can't tell you how many performance reviews I had where I was doing so well, trying to climb the ladder, trying to do well. And every single performance review would say that I was too sensitive. Now, I was not crying in meetings. I wasn't doing anything other than the fact that I am actually just a sensitive person, and they could pick up on that. And sensitive translated into woman. And so I was often held back and criticized because I was myself. And I'm sure a lot of women out there can identify with that. There were hot-headed, temperamental men. I worked in the PR and advertising business that would throw things and, yell. And they were never called too sensitive or that they had anger issues, right? So this is just an example. What I'm trying to set the stage of is there was kind of this mythology, and we all knew our place. Over time, as people worked and fought back against the different systems, and I'm going to do a whole longer video about Pluto and Aquarius, or Pluto through the signs leading up to what we're at now with Pluto and Aquarius, but here in the US. But things have changed. And so the promises that we were given when we were a kid, like work hard and you can save to buy a house, that's not true anymore. Get an education and a good job will be waiting for you. Not necessarily true. You are a white man, so you are entitled to run the company. You're going to be the CEO, and everyone, you're going to have a female secretary, and, all of the people of color will be in service jobs, right? So this was kind of the unspoken contract. That contract is no longer valid. Or it started to not be valid. Let's just put it that way. There was dents in that contract. And so that becomes a broken promise. For better or for worse, okay? I'm not even actually judging, but the person that blew himself up in front of Trump Tower in Las Vegas, or Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, in a Cybertruck, he left a suicide note. And his suicide note said, among other things, he was railing against DEI. And that really just hit me that this person, he was a war veteran from Afghanistan. And, he was told this war was, be patriotic and fight for your country. That was not true. He lost friends that died. He killed people. And he knows it was for nothing. He knows that now. And the weight of that is tremendous. And we don't talk enough about the burden that men carry, because there is this kind of entitlement. There is this, like, you were given all of this. And so those of us that had to adapt, those of us that struggled and suffered, had to figure it out. And we had to develop a resourcefulness to get along in the world. And it didn't come without pain and suffering. But there was kind of this inherent from birth figuring it out. There was this kind of knowledge that you're not as good. A lot of these men didn't get that messaging when they were young. And now here they are, confused and struggling. And they don't understand they were lied to. And it was a broken promise. And so the easy papering over feeling is we want to blame someone else. right? It's like it's got to be someone's fault, right? So this person really was a big supporter of the incoming administration. He wasn't an immigrant. He wasn't ISIS. None of those things. He was a disillusioned American man who felt like the world had lied to him. And in fact, it did. But he didn't have the tools to deal with it. So he cheated on his wife. And then his wife, in years past, decades past, his wife may have just been like, oh, well, I have a newborn baby and my husband cheated on me. I have no other choices, so I'm going to have to just stay with him and suck it up. But she left him. And the pain of that consequence was too much for him, and it sent him over the edge. But he was already dealing with all of this broken promise. So why am I talking about this astrologically? I do believe Saturn and Pisces, something that we've been dealing with for over a year now, and Neptune and Pisces. There's a lot of delusion. There's a lot of wanting to see things through nostalgic glasses, wanting to see things through a lens that would make it easy. So it's kind of an escapist lens that we've been dealing with. And Neptune and Pisces, I think, has actually done a tremendous amount of damage in this country specifically because of the income inequality and all of the broken promises that we've all been living with, and seeing the corruption through Pluto and Capricorn, but also just being let down, really just being let down and wanting to escape. And there have been a lot of different ways to escape. Now, the higher road of Neptune and Pisces is turning inward and meditating and finding a spiritual center, and really kind of almost like enlightenment in a lot of ways. It's like beyond. It's like coming to this knowledge of something so much greater than yourself. And that is also Neptune and Pisces. But a lot of humans are not there evolutionarily. And so they turned to drugs, they turned to alcohol, they turned to social media, which is incredibly addictive. They turned to these phones that, myself included, like dopamine hits after dopamine hits. And we turned to cults. We turned to people that would tell us everything's going to be okay. I alone can fix it, right? And that's the message, right? I alone can fix it. He can fix it. This big, strong man's going to take care of me because I need somebody to fix this because the promise has been broken. But Saturn and Pisces started to make it clear that nope. This is sad. It's depressing, but that's a broken promise. This is the end of that dream. Now, I don't want to be super depressing here, but I do want to really outline what I think is happening in the zeitgeist. And that is what we were told, what we were taught was our reality, was life, was the rules of the game, is dissolving. It's falling away. It's slipping out of our fingers. And we have to face that pain and we have to heal because something new is going to be born. There's going to be a new world, a new promise, a new contract, but it hasn't arrived yet. And so all we're left with right now is this kind of sadness that the world that we knew is no longer here. So the truth of the matter is we can't hold on to that world because it is slipping away and we're watching it fall and crumble. We're watching it in a lot of different ways. The 20th century zeitgeist, what we knew in our lifetimes is changing. So how can we embrace that and not try to grip and hold on to it? So, I was trying to think of some way to explain this, but in the 1800s, imagine you lived on a little house in the prairie sort of situation, right? And you had you had the guy that made the horseshoes and you had, the one room schoolhouse, and it was an agrarian society in a lot of ways. And like, you knew all your neighbors and you had no concept of what was happening in New York City, right? That wasn't your reality. Well, the Industrial Revolution changed so much, and we became much more of an urban society. There were cars. Imagine being in the late 1800s to 1940s or 1930s, even 1920s, okay? So like the late 1800s to the 1920s, or even the 1900s. If you ever watched Downton Abbey, think about that. Like that was the 1900s, that was early 1900s, where they were still in the 19th century. And then they got cars and they got the phonograph and they got electricity. Like before that, they were like lighting candles, right? So all of this stuff changed. And do you think that they could have imagined what the world was going to be like? And imagine how sad and confusing that must have been to have that change. But it changed. And that's where we're at with this time period. We are entering the new century. Even though we're 25 years in, it's kind of like, if you think about it, it's that sort of like we're about to enter into something we just don't know what it's going to look like. And it's going to be bumpy and rocky, and there's going to have to be changes. And these broken promises are, I think, where we are feeling this disillusionment. I think that's a lot of what we're seeing with a lot of the misogyny and a lot of the racism is people were told a certain thing and now that thing is leaving. So here's this guy, and literally in a suicide note, he's railing against DEI programs. I mean, how strange is that? Like to blame women and minorities for having any sort of opportunity. And that's part of why you want to kill yourself. It's really sad. It's really sad because he's been lied to. Because we are not the problem. I'm not the problem. Immigrants aren't the problem. Black people aren't the problem. Us having an opportunity to have a degree of equality is not what's taking anything away from him. That's not what did this. What did this is a complete misunderstanding and misreading of the fact that the American dream has wealthy billionaires and CEOs have taken a sledgehammer to the American dream. And I'll tell you right now, it's not because of women and Black people or immigrants that took, any opportunities away from him. But that's an easy solution, right? It's not a solution. It's an easy target. So that's what he's been fed. That's the propaganda, because it's like, those are the people that did that to you. Those are the people that you should be angry at. But that's not the case. And I don't think women and immigrants and minorities we may temporarily lose some power here. But in the end, with Pluto and Aquarius, I think there's going to be a lot of exposing of the Pluto and Capricorn ills. And I think that there will be more opportunities eventually. But in the meantime, it's going to be bumpy. All right, so what do we do over the next 3 months, 4 months? We work on ourselves, because this is so much bigger than us. We're in the grips of a planetary changeover. And the endings that we are given right now are the opportunity to heal. And it's the opportunity for men to heal too. Big opportunity for men to get in touch with their emotions. That's the higher thing here, is to actually feel their emotions. Now, they were shamed into not feeling their emotions. And so they have no idea how to deal with something when they're disappointed and sad. And so the only emotion that they were taught is anger. And so the anger is the first thing that they know to go to. But underneath the anger is tremendous fear of powerlessness. See, a lot of us on the other side here already knew we were powerless in some ways. So it's not quite as hard. And women are given the opportunity to cry. Women are given the opportunity to go to therapy. It's not shunned, right? This is a time of tremendous healing. And I challenge any man watching this to understand that this is your time to heal, because the more you get in touch with your emotions and the pain that you feel about being lied to, or the broken promises, or the neglect that you felt from your mother as a child because she had to go to work because one person couldn't sustain a family. I mean, there's all different things that, played into this demise of the American dream. And I got to tell you, it's not people coming over to pick our vegetables. It has a lot more to do with shipping jobs overseas and automation and, greed. CEO pay went from 20 or 30 times higher than the average worker to 200 to 300% higher. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that the X-Man makes something like $8 million an hour or $55 million an hour. It was just staggering that we can't even wrap our heads around how ridiculous it is, right? I mean, that $250 million he put into the campaign to get the incoming administration elected is literally like a cup of coffee for him. Literally. That's really out of balance. That's really messed up. And something is going to have to change about that. But in the meantime, we have to put our trust in the cosmos right now, that on a bigger level, and I'm not saying completely disengage, but I am saying if you have to completely disengage in order to start to take care of your own energy, that's what you need to do, because that's what this is about, is you've got to heal. We all have to heal the wounds inside of us. Mars in Cancer. Mars is the aggressive energy. It's very male. It's very out there and wants to get things done. And Cancer is the feeling. It's the mother. It is the archetype of feminine nurturing. Mars does not like to be in Cancer. It's a very stressful aspect, stressful placement for Mars. But the higher promise, the road that can be taken is actually to feel motivation to feel your emotions and to nurture yourself. Where are you scared? Where were you hurt? Because if you can't get in touch with this, it's going to come out anyway. And it's going to come out in ways like we just saw over New Year's with someone driving a car through, a crowd and killing people senselessly. Or it's going to come with somebody making a spectacle of his suicide because he felt lied to and there was a broken promise and it had to be somebody else's fault. It couldn't be his failings. And the reality is it probably wasn't his failings. That's the thing. We've all been told a mythology. We've all been told a story, and that story is crumbling. So in the absence of that story, what's left? Who are you? Who am I? Who are we as a people, humanity? That is what we are being challenged right now to do, is go towards a love of humanity. Go towards our healing center. Bring out our soul. Don't sit and scroll endlessly on social media. Don't sit in front of CNN all day. I mean, in fact, please don't ever watch CNN again. But that's another story. Don't give in to this. Don't give in to fear. It's not a time to be afraid. It is a time to feel your feelings. And if you are feeling afraid, then how do you transmute that fear? What do you need to do to cry? If you're a man, how are you going to figure out a way to cry and feel where you've been let down? But then maybe feel empathy for other people. Maybe you'll have a new mythology. My teacher, Steven Forrest, and I got into a tiff a couple years ago, and I'm meaning to email him because he was kind of talking about how men have lost the plot, and that they really don't have their own mythology anymore. Like women are going to college much more than men these days. And it feels like there's more opportunity for women and minorities. It's not true, but they have this story still that's still kind of kicking. Like if you work hard enough, it's still kind of kicking. But again, the broken promise, right? And he was sort of talking to me about how men are lost as a group, right? And that's how we ended up in this, getting this new administration coming in, was because, a lot of women sat home and men that never voted before came out in droves, and young men switched parties, or for first-time voters, which are traditionally Democratic voters, voted Republican. And it's because there's all of these men out there like Joe Rogan and Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tate, like all this really toxic stuff that is telling these young men that women and minorities that are ruining the world, that it's our fault. It's not our fault, I promise you. But they're not giving them any other avenue to heal what's really going on inside them. Is what is they need a new mythology. If the old mythology doesn't play and they no longer have the power they used to have, or the gift, the entitlement that they were told was theirs, what is life for? So they play video games, or they let their wife earn all the money while they stay home and watch porn. I don't know, but I've got friends who that's what their spouses do. I have a lot of female friends. I live in, the Bay Area, so that might be different than like middle America, but I have a lot of female friends they're the breadwinner, and their husbands do not do anything. They don't do the dishes. They don't clean. They don't do the childcare. They resent having to do that stuff, and the woman has to do everything. And they end up resenting because they're exhausted, because they're not super women. And so then we have like divorces, or we have really unhappy marriages, and that infects the kids, right? So it's like all this kind of mess. What is the new mythology for men? And that's what's got to be born. And that's what's coming, is there is some new mythology. And I'm going to be talking to Christopher Renstrom this week, and I want to talk to him about that, because he's been doing a lot of really good work about the fact that we're going to be switching over into a lot of masculine yang energy with all the Aries coming. Because after Pisces, when things fall apart, we need something fresh and new, and that's Aries. So all this Pisces is going to give way to Aries eventually, except for the nodes, which, anyway, that's another story. But point being, right now, the next few months, how do we get through this? We heal. We do therapy. We turn inward and we spend time with our families. We meditate. We journal. We take my course. We take other people's courses. We listen to inspirational things that give us meaning. We need meaning. We need to feel our feelings, so then we can go into this next phase more empowered and healthier. The cosmos is asking us to clean up our emotional act right now. As things fall apart around us, when everything falls apart, you have you. And who are you? Get to know yourself. That's what this is about. This is the time for really getting in touch with your soul. Something deeper, not your personality, not who you are when you are out drinking with friends, or just watching Netflix. Like the deeper you, the real you. What are you here to do? This is the time to understand that, because when you understand that, and when you heal past wounds or traumas, whether it's emotional, sexual, physical, any kind of abuse that you have suffered, this is an opportune time to really go into that emotional pain and release it. It's about releasing to prepare for what's coming. It's not about blame. It's not about escape. It's not about depression. These are all things that are pitfalls of this time. Go beyond that. This Pisces energy is about being in love with the world, in love with nature, in love with the universe, in love with your family, and in love with yourself, your real, true core self. And if you are not really sure who your real true core self is, this is a really good time to figure that out. So I know I took us down a lot of different paths, but that's the quality of this time. The quality of this time is endings, which can be melancholy, it can be sad, but it also can be a tremendous time of healing. And so the more you heal internally and on a deeper spiritual level, the better off you're going to be come spring and summer when, we're off to the races. So, which can be an exciting time. It can actually be quite interesting and exciting. So don't take this as a negative. Just take this as what it is. There may be chaos at our front doors, but we don't have to be sad about it. I'm not saying ignore the news. You need to know what's going on. You need to participate on some level, but you also, I think the bigger thing is raising your own vibration and doing the work to heal yourself, because the more of us that do that, the less likely there is going to be chaos. And we can't control anyone else. We can only control ourselves. And like I said, that's a big theme for this time is we can change ourselves. I'm very different than I used to be, Let go of victimhood. Pisces can be very much the victim. That is not what Pisces is about. That's the shadow of Pisces. So release that victimhood. Release and go into love. That's the antidote, is how you see things. Change the story. That poor man blaming, being told that his problems were DEI. Can you imagine? So sad. Right? What if he could feel his feelings and have an honest conversation with his wife and he didn't have to numb out by cheating on her because he probably really loved her? What if people could have honest conversations and feel what they're really feeling and feel vulnerable? Pisces is vulnerable. It's the most vulnerable sign. It's even more vulnerable than Cancer. And that's why it shuts down and escapes. Don't escape right now. Feel that vulnerability, because that vulnerability is the superpower of this time. So, okay, is there anything else I wanted to talk about? I was going to do a whole thing about the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but we're already 36 minutes into this video. So if you've never watched that movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, it's a very long title. It's got Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet in it. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I think that that's a great story for right now, because I think it kind of shows the point of the movie is there's this technology when, someone breaks up with you, it erases all your memories of that person. And, but life has a way of bringing you back to that feeling anyway. You can't escape it. You can't shortcut the pain and the grief. Feel the grief that this is all that we've been, the broken promises. Feel the grief of the broken promise. I love that movie. Watch that movie, because that movie is very Aquarian, Piscean. The lesson of that movie is you're going to get hurt. That's life. You're going to get hurt. You can escape it for a while, but it's just kind of stuffing it down. It's still there. So do you want to kind of maybe step into something new and see it differently? But in order to get to that newness, you may have to go through the grief, which may be really, really hard and really, really painful. But there's a reward at the end. Hopefully that gives you some thoughts on the quality of this time, which is about endings, feeling our feelings, being vulnerable, feeling grief, and really then having some breakthroughs, more soul universal breakthroughs about what you're really here to do and who you really are, which is fantastic and beautiful. So, yeah. So, again, I'm going to put the link to my course below. It's just one thought about, how you can kind of learn a little bit, if you're interested in astrology, learn a little bit more about your own personal chart without actually having to get a reading. I do have some readings available all the way through May. So that's another thing you can do is book a reading. But just meditate, breathe, like journal, do art, all of the Piscean things, and heal. So there is a reason and a season for it all. The cosmos is supporting us right now, like big time. It just doesn't feel like it. It feels hard. So feel that. Be okay with it. Go into it. Lean into it. Allow it. And until next time, stargazers, Happy New Year.